it's on the recording as well. Um, Please note that this call is being recorded and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel. If you're not comfortable with it, you may want to drop off now. With that, I'm going to hand over the floor to Hugo. Please take it away.
Thank you. So everybody, today we're going to talk about DevOps with Form Recognizer. So just a little bit about me. I'm Hugo Girard. I'm a Senior Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft. I'm working here since around 2 years, and I cover everything that is cloud native development. So migrating all application, green project, container, and obviously a bit of AI. So that's why today I'm going to speak about it. So the agenda of today, it's I will explain like what is DevOps with Form Recognizer, and keep in mind this applied to a bunch of our cognitive services, and I will explain it a little bit more, why it matters, how you do DevOps with this AI services. I will provide like a use case architecture that I show like how to implement the flow. I will go more in details about the DevOps workflow. And after that, I will show a demo. So I will show basically a CI/CD with GitHub. I will be a little bit of code today because, when it's DevOps, you have some pipelines, some code sample, but not too deep dive on that. And at the end, if you have any question, please feel free. So, oh, another thing I wanted to say today, we won't go deep in the Form Recognizer. There's another video on the channel for that. So it's really more about DevOps focus. So when you go with Form Recognizer or any other AI services, most of the time you have all those pre-trained model that you can use out of the box. But when you want like something more specific to your domain, your business domain, with your own data, it's from there that you're going to create a custom model. So you will start training this custom model basically with your form, PDF, Word document, etc. Form Recognizer. And the goal after that is you want to be able to migrate it in different environment. Most of the time you will have like your team will focus creating that model, and you need to do some iteration until it's really able to handle your production scenario. So this is kind of like DevOps like with Form Recognizer. So as you can see at the bottom, you have your developer or data scientist that will upload all the document or assets you need to train your model. So they will put it in a storage that you see at the top left. And from there, they will start doing the labeling, like this key value extraction that you can do with Form Recognizer. Next, they will train the model, test it in their development environment, and you want to migrate that most of the time to another environment like QA, UAT. From there, you have a QA engineering or still some data scientists that will test the model. You gather your feedback and you start like you DevOps inner loop. So basically, after that, you will create a new version of a model, retrain it, adding more variation of your form, and again, push it to QA. And from there, once it's ready, you push it in production. And in production, basically, you will have your user or your real application, like using the model that you just trained. So how you do DevOps, basically, like all of our cognitive services, they have a REST API. So you leverage the REST API of Form Recognizer to migrate your model between your different environments. And here in this demo, we're going to really focus mostly on the build model, and I will explain why later, the copy model and the generate copy authorization. So what the generate copy authorization does is basically you have multiple, you have like development, for example, in QA. And from there, you have like a Form Recognizer resource for your development environment and one for your QA. And you want to be able to copy your model that you train in dev to the Form Recognizer resource in QA. So for that, you need to have kind of a notarization key. So that's what this method do. When you retrieve that, you can call the other method that is to copy your model. So it would just take your model from one Form Recognizer resource and copy to another. And when you want to do that, why you don't retrain all the time, your model between every environment? Basically, it's like compute resource, there's two ways to train a model in Form Recognizer, the template and the neural model. And neural model can take hours. And if you have like complex, model like with 50 document, multi-page, it can take time and you will just spend like money when you don't need to. So the good way is really you take your model that's already trained and just copy it to another Form Recognizer environment. So you will save cost and time basically. For this scenario, I created an Azure function basically, because every REST API that we have SDK available, C Sharp, Python, name it, that is just a wrapper on top of the REST API. So the purpose of that, it will create like a retry if there's a glitch on the network, and it's just easier for development. You don't need to do that in your DevOps workflow. You can just call directly the API, and I will show how easy it is to do that. But just for simplicity here, I created kind of an utility function that do everything. So basically, you see I have the copy model, and behind the scene, when I copy the model, I get the authorization. So it's just like simplify the code. But again, this is not mandatory. It's just for demo purposes. Plus this Azure function, I use it in a web application that I generate just to test my model, console my model that I have between my environment. So again, demo purpose only. So this is the architecture that I create, and this is available through GitHub, and it will be shared at the end. So feel free to get the repository, try it, and your subscription. So basically, I create three environments here: Dev, QA, and production. And each environment will have like a form recognizer resource, and you will have a storage in this case only in development, because like I said, you're gonna upload all the form that you need to train your model. But you just need them in dev. You don't need to replicate those assets in your other environment, because at the end of the day, you do your training in dev. When it's ready, you just copy to another environment and so on. So every time you need to add new asset or new variants of your model, you will just do that in dev. At the top, you have the Azure function. You have another storage that basically when you upload some document for testing will go there, and a simple Blazor web application that I use it just to test the model and console what I have between every environment. And basically this is the DevOps workflow. So you have your developer, like again, quite similar to the other diagram, upload everything, train his model. When it's ready, call a GitHub action. When you call the GitHub action, you will just need to pass the model ID. This will just do a validation. Hey, is this model really exists in development? If it's the case, it will migrate in QA. From there, obviously, you will have an engineer or whoever tests the model. And once this is done, you will migrate in production with an approver. Like most scenario, you never kind of deploy in production directly. You will have some protection, in your pipeline, some check you need to do. And in this case, you need someone to approve the model to migrate. So now we show the demo. So one thing here, you can train your model uh, with Form Recognizer Studio, and probably the first time you're gonna do a model, you're gonna do it through Form Recognizer Studio. You're gonna upload all your PDF, Word document, and start the labeling. And once you have that, you can start creating versioning of that. So basically, everything that you use for training, you can save it in your Git repository. Like, your model became almost like a code, so you can do versioning. So the Git became your source of truth, and is what I did in that demo. And for simplicity too, I don't want to start training a model in front of you. It can take some time. So here I have my 5 document that is needed to train my model, and all the file for the labeling are already present. So as you can see, here, I have this label.json. So basically, when I train my model and I did the labeling, it generates that file. So from there, you have the label that is job application type with the value and where it is in the document. And you have the OCR that got extracted from the document. So the goal of that is the first time you train with the tool, and after that, you save all those assets and you put it in your Git repository. This use case is simple, but let's say you have like a really complex scenario. I saw some of my customer, they were having sometime like 25 documents they needed to train because a lot of variation. They were having a multi-page, like 20 page and a lot of labels. So let's an accident happen and you lose all your work. It's time consuming. So your training, you save it to your Git and it became kind of your source of truth. And if I go to Form Recognizer Studio, just to prove you that what I put there is already properly labeled, I create a custom model, sorry, a custom project. We select here, you see I have like my Form Recognizer that is in development, so I select it. And you see I have like 5 documents and I already have all the labeling done. So that's what you're going to do like probably the first time. And after that, you will just train from the tool. But in this case, I will do the training through a CI/CD, just to show you that once you have like all this saved in your Git repository, it's really easy to train. So I have this simple GitHub pipeline that basically what it does behind the scene, it will just call my Azure function, and my Azure function will call the Form Recognizer REST API and train the model. So when this is it's already done. So yeah, it was pretty fast. So just to prove you that I really call the API behind the scene, if I go back to the Form Recognizer Studio and I click the model, you see the model is here. So I didn't train from the tool, I use the REST API. And if I go back here to this GitHub pipeline, this step return a GUID. So basically, this is the model ID. It can be anything. In this example, I just generate a GUID, and that's what I'm going to use. And this is important when you want to migrate between every environment. Like I said, you need the model ID basically to tell, hey, this is the model ID I want to copy from Organizer and Dev to QA. And I have this little application here that I just use to console like all my environments. So if I go to Dev, you see I have the model that I just trained. And obviously, if I go to QA or production, nothing will be there. So now I will migrate to QA. So if I go here, and he asked me, like I said, the model ID, so we'll just retrieve it from here. And here, the first step is like I validate if the model exists basically in the dev environment. I could have done the same check after that when I migrate QA to production, but I just like skip it. So now if on the model, and you're gonna like migrate it to the QA environment. And it's already finished. So if I go back here, you should see in QA. And just to prove, let me refresh the application. So if I go to QA, you have the model, and obviously production is not there. And one thing that is important here is like, if we copy paste, the model ID, and we go to QA, it's the same value. And that's what you want, because at the end of the day, you're not training a new model, So it should match, because it's just you take what you have in one Form Recognizer resource and copy it to another one. So obviously the ID will be the same. And next, here production, like I said, I put like something like an approver. So I go there and I say, this is good. and I will deploy in production. And when is doing this in production, like I said, you can do everything I did with the Azure function and the SDK Form Recognizer with the normal REST API. Like you see, like here you have when I trained, that was that method and the copy model and generate model. And when I was retrieving all the model that I was having in an environment, basically I was calling the list model. And if I click here, basically it's pretty simple. You just pass like you endpoint, and this you retrieve it from the Azure portal, and the key of the services that you pass in the HTTP header. So just to show you, this is my development, from organizers if you want. So you can see it here from the name. And if I click here, I retrieve all the model available in this resource. You will retrieve to all the pre-built model, but if I scroll at the end here, this is my custom model that I just created. So I could have done that through any Bash or PowerShell script through my CI/CD at .NET Console app. Basically, what is the best for you. So if I go back to GitHub, now I should be in production. So if I click here, it went to prod like expected. So here I have like, again, the model, same ID. And if I test it like in QA, for example, so I have this form that I use for testing. So you can see it's like a job application. So basically what this does is like it's calling the form organizer that is my QA environment, passing the model ID here and the information of that document. And from there, I extract all the key value from my labeling and the confidence score. And what I want to show you is, let's say I copy like the name of the candidate and the confidence score associated to it, and the position apply for. So here I just want to show that because it's the same model, if you test the same document and production, the same confidence score should happen because it's not a different model. So if you use all the same training data basically, and you use the same document for testing. So let's do it in production. So again, here, like the name and the confidence score. So same than QA, and this is expected, same model, same document that I use for testing, and the same for, I think it was position apply for, and it's the same value. So, that proves just here that basically the same model is used in different environment, and you will have the same result if you use the same test document. So now, like, let's say, okay, this is the first version, it went to production, couple of months pass by, and you need to do some modification. Then you will go to the Form Recognizer Studio. You will say, like, you will add more labeling or more document that have some variation, and you will extract the value. You will go here and let's say you create like a version 2. You start training it. So basically that will create your new model. And then he's there, should be already finished. So now I have version 2. And again, you will like do the same with your pipeline. So, like that would be like your flow. So here, let me that. So now basically you will continue your DevOps loop. So if every new version of the model, then you will migrate, using your CI/CD. So if I go here, obviously in Dev I have 2 versions, and when this would be finished, the new version will be in QA. And so it's already done. So now if I go here, I should see it in QA, and yeah, it's there. So now I would show like just really simple the CI/CD pipeline, what it is. First thing I did, obviously in GitHub, and GitHub is not mandatory. You can use Azure DevOps, whatever is your CI/CD tool. I created 3 environments. So basically, you will have an environment for probably each of your form recognizer resource, depending of your company. In this case, I was having dev, QA, and production, and in prod, I just created like an approver, but you can have other control check that you include. And basically pretty easy. So the first step, like I said, I was validating if the model exists. And I encapsulate all the call to the Azure function in PowerShell script. So I save the endpoint of the Azure function in a GitHub secret that I pass as in a secure string in the PowerShell script. And after that, the model ID. So if you check the model, so from there, like it's like really simple. You just create a HTTP post with a payload. So all pipeline have the same concept, like you call a PowerShell script that will call your Azure function. So basically you validate the model exists, and from there deploying in QA and in prod calling the Azure function. And I will just show pretty fast the Azure function, not going too deep in the detail what it does, but like I said, why I use that, it was because I wanted to create some business logic. I could have done it through PowerShell, but I found it was more convenient to do it in C#. And I have this thing here that is a client factory. So basically, what it does behind the scene, it just create like the client SDK in C# to call from Recognizer. And from there, like here I build my model. Here, like basically, it's like the copy model that I was telling you. So basically, you create two client, like one for the source and one for the target. So you could do the same again, with a normal Bash script, but for this scenario, it was easier like that. So I wrote a blog too about this. So this will be shared at the end. So please feel free to consult the blog. It's really based on the GitHub that I just show and explain what I said today about DevOps and how to achieve it with Form Recognizer. And to finish, like same concept could apply if you use like speech to text image classification. So it's not only specific to Form Recognizer. Keep in mind, the minute you need like kind of custom model with your cognitive services, this is like something you can use. So I don't know if anybody have some question or.
Thanks, Hugo. Anybody who have any questions, please feel free to post in the chat window or and Hugo,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, one thing, if you don't, can you please keep sharing your presentation? Because when I stop recording, sometimes it has the pictures of the people in the end, which is kind of we want to avoid. We want to have the presentation in the end. Thank you. Yes, so
It's
somebody had a
coming.
question.
And it is really awesome session, the similar situation happening with my customer. So is the right timing, are you able to find out and you able to provide these sessions? Would you be able to provide the PPTs, like, so we can leverage and we can reuse with the customer?
Sure. I think, Naveed, you shared them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I share them. So the PDF is
Mm.
shared with the link to the PDF is always in our sessions. In the
Yeah.
YouTube description. And if you want the actual PPT, just ping
Mm.
me. I will send it to you.
Sure. Yes. Okay, Javed. Really, I feel very happy now.
Okay,
One of the
glad,
challenging we are facing with customer.
glad.
Thank you.
Problem?
Mm.
The form recognizer is something I hadn't seen before. Thank you for taking the time to show it. But I do have a question. After you extract the text, how do you how would you write or where would you plug in code or plug in a decision that if a certain value is there, or if a value is A, do this, if a value is B, do that. Is that something that's part of Form Recognizer?
No, so this will be more post processing. So basically, you're going to train your model, extract, use a document with that model. You will extract the information based on your labeling. And from there, you will have your post processing. It can be a Python script, software, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You will check the value and do your condition.
It could be our own code that we would go do that with. So Form Recognizer is the OCR tool.
Yeah, correct.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, folks?
So if you go, so can we use pre-built model the same way, right?
Yeah, but the pre-built model, the thing is just like it's available like in all your environments. So, this is really more like when you do custom model and you have multiple Form Recognizer resource. But otherwise, you can use the pre-built, just you won't need to do CI/CD because it would just be there out of the box in all your Form Recognizer resource.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Hugo. Really appreciate it. A very nice session. And I'm going to stop the recording. Just remember that there would be no session for the week of 18th and 25th, and we will start back on 12th